Everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here to talk once again about Deutsche Bank. I know we've been talking about it a lot lately, and we've been talking about it for many years, but the tailspin is so out of control, it's hard not to constantly be reporting on, because there's something new seemingly every single day, from all the scandals that we talked about years ago on the derivative exposure hitting $75 trillion, now down to a nice, safe $45 trillion derivative exposure, even though Germany's GDP is $3.5 trillion. We've been talking about the tens of thousands of layoffs, the attempted restructuring, the attempted merger with Commerzbank, and now there's more. As this article out of Zero Hedge says, Deutsche Bank to slash bonuses as much as 20%. It looks like Deutsche Bank, as the article says, CEO Christian Sewing is really going to have his work cut out for him this bonus season, just as we expected. According to a Bloomberg report published Friday morning, sources with inside knowledge said Deutsche Bank is going to be cutting its bonus pool by 20%. Making Sewing's task of retaining top talent even more difficult than it would have otherwise been. And it's worth pointing out, I'll cut away for a moment, it's worth pointing out that they are losing ridiculous amounts of shareholders. People are not happy with, a bank whose share prices have been crashing for more than 10 years. As it continues here, it says the 20% cut far outpaces the 5% reduction in headcount that's taken place in 2019. But Sewing has promised Deutsche Bank shareholders $6 billion in cost cuts as part of his turnaround strategy. And for that to work, there's no way the bonus pool can go untouched. It's a problem because, as BBG explains, Sewing has pitched Deutsche Bank's moribund investment bank as the centerpiece of his turnaround strategy. After selling off or shuttering unprofitable businesses, Sewing is hoping to restructure the investment bank, focusing on advisory and corporate banking while moving away from trading. But all of those businesses rely on rainmakers at the top to bring in the business. Sewing will need skilled managers and dedicated people in the top positions to make the turnaround work. Unfortunately, revenue at the investment bank, which is led by Mark Federsik and Ram Nayak, was down 11% in the first 9 months of 2019, while pre-tax profit plummeted by 47%. The bank is already suffering from considerable brain drain. In the months before Sewing announced his $8 billion reinvention of Deutsche Bank earlier this year, a raft of senior executives left the bank, and even more personnel left after Sewing warned that the bank would seek to cut its headcount substantially in the coming years by getting rid of roughly 18,000 jobs. Despite the investment bank's weak results of 2019, Sewing has said that momentum has been improving, though the investment bank's turnaround is anything but certain. Apparently, DB's PR team has managed to convince the financial press that 5 months in, Sewing's turnaround plan is starting to show some improvements. Of course, a shrinking bonus pool is nothing new for Deutsche Bank employees. The bonus pool has been shrinking for years, and you can see the chart there. One factor acting in Sewing's favor is the fact that Deutsche Bank likely won't be alone among its European banking rivals in handing out smaller bonuses this year. But with Deutsche Bank shares still struggling to climb off of all-time lows and many still in doubt, Sewing is going to need to make those bonus dollars stretch as far as he can. And that means there will undoubtedly be thousands of young bankers at Deutsche Bank who go home disappointed this Christmas if they're not working through the holidays. That is. So I want to go into this briefly. I just got to point out, first of all, they say that 2019 hasn't been a good year for Deutsche Bank, and neither was 2018 or 2017 or 2016 or 2015. I could go back over 10 years. I mean, look at their share price. It's ridiculous. And to note that, they are worried about retaining people at Deutsche Bank, keeping, top employers on the payroll and stopping them from, going anywhere else. Just think about for a second what it would be like to be considered on on your resume as one of the top guys at, for example, Lehman Brothers or Fannie Mae or something, or Freddie Mac, it's not good for your reputation to work at Deutsche Bank. Though, in my opinion, all banks are technically speaking bankrupt. If you look at their own cash to deposit ratio on their balance sheet, most banks are carrying, less than 10%. Many of the major banks, less than 1% of cash to deposit. So that tells you all you need to know right there. And Deutsche Bank is actually doing better than most of them. But I mean, Deutsche Bank has been so tied up in debt. So it's just a behemoth of debt and destruction over the last 10 years. So I wouldn't blame anyone for leaving Deutsche Bank. In fact, I trolled Deutsche Bank in person earlier this year in Frankfurt, Germany at their headquarters. And I was seriously concerned about a banker falling on my head. Now, all jokes aside, this is a real issue that's affecting a lot of people, and it has so much to do with fractional reserves, so much to do with printing of currency, so much to do with central banking, so much to do with just getting involved in debt and all the manipulation of the economy that we see worldwide. Look, I mean, Deutsche Bank is looking to create a bad bank. It was downgraded by the S&P. It was forced to redo its living will test. It's been caught up in scandal after scandal, from the Deutsche Bank scandal, which is interesting because, when we're talking about avoiding taxes or money laundering, the first thing I think of is banks, yet the number one culprit for reporting money laundering is banks. So that just says all you need to know about their hypocrisy right there, but also just involved in spoofing markets. And they are also involved with Trump. Obviously, Trump has his money in Deutsche Bank, and I don't know. I just find the whole restructuring plan all just an attempt to maybe get public support on their side. And yeah, there are some newspapers out there that have been saying that everything's fine at Deutsche Bank, but it clearly is not. I mean, how many years of crashing like a rock can you possibly see before you say, you know what? Maybe there isn't a bottom that you're going to bounce up from. Maybe the bottom is hell and there's no coming back. I mean, at what point do people say, man, this looks terrible, I'm not going to put my money in this bank? I believe that, I mentioned Lehman Brothers earlier, I believe that Deutsche Bank will be the major domino to fall and will be Lehman Brothers 2.0, but on steroids. I mean, what we're seeing today is a symptom of the everything bubble. We see bubbles from pension bubbles, which massive shortfalls, by the way, and looking at the pension bubbles, we're looking at, for example, by 2050, it's predicted that the shortfall worldwide will hit $400 trillion, which is 5 times the global GDP, which says a lot right there. But also we see housing bubbles, and housing bubbles, obviously Deutsche Bank is heavily caught up in credit default swaps, collateralized debt obligations, and collateralized loan obligations, as they call them now, and all sorts of craziness like that. And subprime lending. And, they were involved in the 2008 crisis, and they got off scot-free, like so many other banks that continue to do the same thing with little fines here and there that don't even come close to adding up to the amount of impoverishment they spread and caused. But also we see things like student loan bubbles, we see derivatives bubbles, and the derivatives bubble worldwide is multi-quadrillion dollar levels, which is unthinkable and is just absolutely astonishing. You cannot pay that back. And then on top of that, you have the number one bubble of all, which is a currency bubble, which plays into all the other bubbles. So the currency bubble being that, currencies worldwide are on the brink of complete disaster, and they have been for a long time, because all fiat currencies eventually revert to their true value of zero. Eventually. I mean, we cannot put a date on it, but we know it's happening, and we're seeing every telltale sign, and the slow frog boil to complete collapse. It's like a roller coaster going downhill, but the problem is the tracks end with the ground, and there's no survivors, folks, no survivors. This is another issue that we've been talking about for years, because it's fraud. It's the biggest scam ever bestowed onto humanity, and that is the vast printing of currency under the social contract usury laws that tie into legal tender, which mean that they print all this currency, they force you to pay off the interest on the debt. They aren't paying off the debt, they're paying off the interest on the debt, which tells you all you need to know, of course, regarding regarding if they ever plan to pay off the debt. And it's just a vast extortion scam. The price of living goes up. The value of the currency goes down. The world reserve currency, the US dollar, is in a huge crisis. And what does that tell you about all the other currencies, the smaller currencies? They may fall first, but at the end of the day, this is a domino effect. And like I said, Deutsche Bank is at the beginning of that. And I think it's going to play into the propped up stock markets that are flooded with central bank nonsense manipulation just to prop up this dead system, which is completely bubbled, by the way, another bubble. And at the same time, you have the monetary system. So that's stock markets, monetary system. Everything's going to end up collapsing, and people are more impoverished than ever. You go onto the streets of Germany and you see everywhere in Frankfurt just homeless people. You go to Paris, everywhere homeless people. You go through Italy, homeless people everywhere. It's just so extensive, and that carries over as well to the Americas. You see that everywhere in LA and New York, throughout the country. 2% rate of homelessness in Las Vegas, though more spread out than places like LA. And then you go to Canada, and we all see the same bubbles. This is all part of the same problem. Of course, you look at places like China, and the debt bubble's ridiculously large, but they're also loaning more money to countries than those countries can afford to pay back, much like the IMF, causing those countries to be in their service, especially in Africa. And also the homeless in China, I'm sure they're probably just disappeared and gotten rid of by the government. Sad situation we're in, and especially with their technocratic cashless society control grid. But that brings me to the next point. So they want people under their control. Debt is a great burden bestowed onto humanity. When you see going back to the 1960s with wages, one father could just go out and work and provide food for 6 kids and his wife and everything. And now both the mother and father are going out and working, sometimes 2 jobs in cases like California, and still not enough to put food on the table or afford their housing. And this isn't an issue with wages. This isn't an issue with affordable housing or rent control. This is an issue with central banks and governments colluding hand in hand to indebt the public, pushing them into poverty, creating a great leg up for the state and banking system. Because if they shove you down a bottomless pit of debt, you're forced to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, putting you into perfect servitude to them right where they want you. That makes you a slave. And that, again, that goes into the cashless society situation where the interest rates are going down everywhere. They're looking at negative in Europe and Britain, in Australia, in the United States, and Canada very soon. And that's one of the things that we need to look out for, because when the interest rates go negative, you go back to between 2008 and 2012, they dropped out 5.5%. Now they would go at that rate down to about 3.5% in negative 3.5%. If in the next collapse. Obviously, the recession's been pushed off and papered over the years. It's still there, technically speaking, but officially it's not. Anyway, carrying on. So when we see the interest rates going down everywhere, I believe that we're going to see this carry into a cashless system. And we're talking via usury, legal tender laws, by fiat, by law, and utilizing the banks. So all these centralized currencies are going to be going through the banking system. And if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's the bank's. If your money's always going to the banks via digital transactions and legal tender laws, it's never your money, it's always the bank's, and you are essentially enslaved to the banking system. Tie in China's control grid, which is set to take over in the next few years. The technocracy out of China with social credit, facial recognition, artificial intelligence. This is extraordinarily dangerous. This isn't George Orwell 1984 anymore. This is Orwell 2084. I mean, it's so far beyond what anyone could have ever imagined. And it's about time that people stand up for themselves and their own money, get their money out of the banking system, in my opinion, and ensure their wealth and ensure their purchasing power. Look at things like gold and silver. Again, in my opinion, not investment advice. And besides, I don't think gold and silver are an investment. They're just spoofed heavily by Deutsche Bank in order to make quick money, but they are wealth insurance. And I think people should look at that because it's being bought up en masse, more than we've seen in a long time. It's set to go up quite a bit in the next collapse. And with that said, also, I mean, with institutional investors buying it, they know something that many people don't, or maybe you do. And now the divide between private ownership and public ownership of gold has hit about a 50% rate, which says a lot. A lot of people are buying up gold and preparing. Also, decentralized, properly, fundamentally useful cryptocurrencies and blockchain infrastructure technology, as well as just being responsible, folks. Stop asking for the government to fix problems. Stop asking for the bank to protect you. They won't. They're there to control you. They're there to impoverish you. They're there to have complete ownership over you and be able to slowly, incrementally create a vast slave grid far greater than what we see today. Don't trust them. Don't allow them to have control over your lives. Be free. Decentralize your life. Free yourself. Live by example. Food, water, shelter, self-defense. You're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. And just be an individual, not part of some vast collective being led off to the slaughter with a smile on their face because they think the grass in the field is enough freedom for them and everything's fine. Meanwhile, there's fences around them and they're about to be led off to the slaughter by that shepherd that has nice hair and nice suit and tie and puts his thumb in his fist a lot and tells you everything's going to be great if you just follow him. It's not. It's a trap. Get out while you still can. Anyway, we will continue to report on Deutsche Bank down the line. There's so much to talk about. As you can see, I'm ranting and raving because it's impossible to concisely say this, because this is all coming down at the same time and it's coming from so many different directions and it's getting excruciatingly dangerous. And there are more solutions than there are problems. So look to yourself for those and break free. Responsibility is key, and responsibility and freedom play hand in hand. Anyway, I appreciate everyone joining us today. Check those links below. Find merchandise at our Teespring store, linked below as well. Lots of options there, from End the Fed to F the Fed to Nobody for President 2020 and Creepy Old Guy 2020 and all sorts of awesome shirts like that. So make sure you get your shirts now and help support independent media as we are living on borrowed time here on YouTube, because at any moment they can take us down. Also, check out our Subscribestar and our Patreon that helps us stay alive here at WHAM. It's the only thing that's really keeping us alive is those pledges. We need your pledges by January 1st to survive as a media into the next decade, into 2020, as everything gets more heated up and truth becomes even more important, more than ever, as there is a war on information. With that said, also join us on float.app. That's flote.app, where I am at Josh Sigurdson as well as at WHAM. You can follow us there. We are posting more there than anywhere else, and it's time to join the Float Revolution because they're set to replace Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and obviously Patreon and so many others. I mean, they got monetization, super chats on their live streams, and you can pledge to people with cryptocurrency, and there's encrypted messaging, all sorts of stuff like that. And obviously we have BitChute as well. Check the comments for that. All pinned below in the top of the comments as well as in the description. So check all that out and join us at Anarchapulco 2020 with promo code WHAM. Anyway, so much to say, so little time, but we'll be joining you soon. Hopefully you'll join us and check out our latest videos and check back for more, because YouTube probably won't tell you for the most part when we post new videos. So anyway, appreciate everyone joining us. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here at WHAM, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We cannot do it without you guys. Every donation is extremely, extremely appreciated as we're getting incredibly shadow banned. We've lost 80% of our audience since January of 2019 and counting. They are ripping us apart here on YouTube, and the only thing we could do in the meantime as we prepare for the next big step is to ask for help from the viewers that support our free information that we try to post on a daily basis. You can also find us on Subscribestar, where just $1 a month, that's all it takes, $1 a month is all it takes to truly make a huge difference. If everyone gave $1 a month, it would change everything for independent media, and we could win this information war, and we can defeat the mainstream medias eventually. And of course, on Subscribestar, we post subscriber-only content that you'll only see on Subscribestar. So make sure to pledge there, become a patron. That makes a huge difference, guys. And also, don't forget to check out our Bitcoin address below in the comments and description, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also, Don't forget to subscribe to us on the alternatives. We will likely be deleted by YouTube in the next 2 years. It's already happening on a vast scale, so make sure to find us on float.app. That's flote.app. At Josh Sigurdson, as well as at WAM, W-A-M. Float.app is replacing every social media, and I mean, it's just incredible the opportunities it provides for not just creators, but for the average person who wants to get away from these nannies telling them what they can or cannot see. They plan to replace Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon. You could subscribe to us on Float and pledge with cryptocurrency. It's really innovative. We are also on BitChute at World Alternative Media, as well as so many others, Minds, PocketNet. You can find us at World Alternative Media on Instagram. There's many options. And finally, don't forget to join us at Anarchapulco 2020, the famous event, the best liberty event known to mankind, other than perhaps Anarcho Vegas 2020. There are 2 major events coming up that we are extremely excited about, and you can use promo code WAM, that's W-A-M, and save 10% on your tickets to these legendary conferences. There's so many amazing people speaking there. You won't want to miss it. So make sure to support in any way you can, even if it's just sharing our videos, pressing like, pressing to be notified. Anything helps, folks. You are the change you wish to see. Thanks for watching, everyone. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.